from Liberia, West Africa.
I'm from Burma.
I'm from Sierra Leone.
I was obliged to leave Cameroon.
Civil war was going on there. People were being killed.
I was quite severely persecuted by the military government.
It's not enough just to say, I was tortured, and somebody's going to hand you over a green card.
Going through the asylum process is like doing a surgical operation without anesthesia.
You're listening to American Purgatory, Political Asylum in the Age of Terrorism, produced by Olivia Bueno and me, Sarah Elzas.
Welcome to Dulles International Airport. All arriving passengers, please ensure your forms are...
Imagine that you're in an airport in the U.S., any airport. You've just arrived from another country, you get off the plane and head towards the passport inspection line. American citizens on one side, everyone else on the other.
Visa holders, you will need a white I-94 form.
If you're not a citizen, an official in a uniform takes your fingerprints and a photo.
Please place your left index finger on the red box, press down and hold.
Asks you a few questions, stamps your passport, and you're on your way. But let's say that this is not a vacation or a business trip.
I was obliged to leave Cameroon because I was get involved with political activity and the government of my country didn't like it. I was fearing for my life. I wasn't planning to ask for asylum anywhere. I wasn't that thinking about the United States or another country. I was just wanted to leave my country and go far away.
This is a special announcement. For security reasons, please keep your luggage and all packages.
I was in so deep depression, because I had to flew in very short period.
H comes from a former Soviet country.
I have to fly in the plane about 2 days, changing one plane, another plane, so one country, another country.
We met him a few months after he came to the United States. Like most people we interviewed, he asked not to have his name or personal details broadcast to protect his family back home. He also specifically requested to have his voice disguised for the same reason.
It was some sort of quick decision, and only one possible decision. That's why I came to the United States.
We've given H a pseudonym because you'll be hearing from him throughout this program.
It was very difficult for me, and I really didn't understand what happened until I arrived.
People who leave their country because they fear persecution are refugees. If they ask for protection in another country, they're called asylum seekers until their cases are decided.
International law doesn't prescribe any particular way to determine who is a refugee.
Kate Jastram teaches at the UC Berkeley Law School. She also used to work for the UNHCR, the United Nations agency that deals with refugees.
But what international law does say is that a country can't send someone back to where they would face torture. It's up to the country to come up with a way to figure out, well, how are we going to identify these people that have to be protected, and those people are the refugees.
In the United States, asylum officers and immigration judges decide who's eligible for protection. Only a few of the world's millions of refugees find their way to the U.S., and they're just a tiny percentage of the hundreds of thousands of immigrants who arrive each year. Their need for protection has been caught up in a broader debate about the balance between openness and the need to protect the country from terrorism. Mark Akorian is a policy analyst at the Center for Immigration Studies.
We can let in every asylum applicant to make sure that no legitimate applicant is ever turned away, or we can reject every asylum applicant to make sure that no bogus applicant gets in. The question is, where do we draw the line? I'd have to say tightening up asylum has a lot to recommend it.
Since September 11th, we've seen a barrage of new policies that have made it tougher for asylum seekers to actually receive asylum in this country.
Eleanor Acer is the director of the asylum program at Human Rights First.
Some of these policies have expanded detention. Others have barred asylum seekers from refuge based on the overly expansive definitions of terms relating to terrorism.
Very nice landing we have today here at JFK. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is 7:05.
The arriving was very good. Yeah, I had no any problems with the flight or custom officers. It was very good.
H., the asylum seeker from the former Soviet Union, arrived at New York's JFK airport in December of 2005. He arrived using his own passport and a valid visa.
That's it. You're all set. Welcome to the United States.
But not everyone has the right documents. Many have to leave home quickly and can't wait for a visa, or they can't ask the government that's persecuting them to provide them with a passport. They go with a fake one or none at all, like this man from Sierra Leone.
I didn't have a passport, and when we got to the U.S., obviously you're not going to get through with a fake document,
My name is Pastor Edward Nipe, and I'm from Liberia, West Africa. I'm currently residing in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I came into the country on a valid visa, and an immigration officer approached me and said, "Why are you here?"
Nipe had actually overstayed a visa a few years back, so he was sent to a secondary inspection area, entering into what is called expedited removal. This is essentially a vetting process to figure out whether or not someone should be deported immediately.
This process is a screening process, but also a bureaucratic process.
Andy Rasmussen is the research director at the Bellevue Center for Survivors of Torture in New York. He was a researcher for a study of the expedited removal process commissioned by Congress in 2003. Rasmussen explains that when an immigration officer interviews an arriving alien, he or she has to fill out a form.
The forms have required statements which are supposed to be read to people as they come in.
Immigration officers are supposed to read this entire form out loud. The last paragraph says the United States provides protection from persecution.
If you fear or have a concern about being removed from the United States or about being sent home, you should tell me so during this interview because you may not have another chance.
That paragraph was not read about 50% of the time.
Mark Hetfield ran the study on expedited removal. He and his researchers observed many omissions in the process.
We just saw a lot of overworked inspectors who just skipped over a lot of steps which are very important to the asylum process, and this is with us in the room.
They started asking me what will happen to me if I were to be taken back to Sierra Leone. I said it would have been too risky for me to go back because, the war was going on. No one was in control. People were being killed like pigeons, I would say.
At the moment that I was to be deported, there was a war raging in the capital city. I arrived at JFK about 5. I was kept and interrogated until 3 a.m.
By law, any asylum seeker who is placed in expedited removal must be detained until an asylum officer determines whether or not their fear of persecution is credible. This credible fear or determination takes a minimum of 2 days, sometimes 2 weeks or more.
I was left in a room all by myself. I just basically put my things on the floor and began to sleep on the floor after being handcuffed. Now, come on, somebody please tell me, am I a criminal? Why the handcuff?